Hello and welcome to Hammer Time, a Hammer horror podcast, part of the Evolution of Horror Network. I'm Becky Darke, a film critic and Hammer fangirl, and I'm joined by my co-host, human encyclopedia of film and TV, and Hammer superfan, Kevin Lyons. Hi, Kev.
Hi, Becky. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. Not too bad. How are you?
Okay, you know, as well as could be expected, the sun has come back out here in London. And having said that, we are talking about the film we're talking about this week, so maybe it is a little bit bad, yeah.
This is literally what I thought you were going to say. I thought you were going to say, yeah, I'm not too bad, apart from the fact that I've spent this week, you know, watching and researching about this slightly dodgy film that we've got to talk about on today's episode.
Yeah, shall we just let's just dive in and get it over and done with.
We'll get into it.
I tell you what, here it is. Here's the short one for people who are in a hurry. I don't like it very much. Join us next week when we talk about...
In this podcast, Kevin and I are watching and discussing every horror film in Hammer's back catalogue. And this week, we've fallen down a trapdoor and found ourselves in a comedy as we discuss The Old Dark House, released in 1966.
Are you interested in property? Desperately in need of somewhere to live or die?
Our Hammer Time discussions are all spoilerific, and we go into plot details and chat about the endings of films. So if you'd like to watch The Old Dark House before you listen to this episode, you can pick it up on Blu-ray from Indicator, or it's available to stream if you're in the US. I think it's on a couple of like Tubi or Hulu or something like that. It's on one of those. So if you are in the US and you want to check it out, then you can do for free. Right. Come on then, Kevin Lyons.
Right. Okay.
What happened here? Who decided it was a good idea to remake The Old Dark House?
Well, The Old Dark House, as we know, the original, the 1930s James Whale film, is an absolute bloody masterpiece.
Yes, correct.
It is a classic of its kind. It's wonderful. And in a sense, it kind of made sense for Hammer to want to do it, because they first looked at it in 1961.
Okay.
When they were still, you know, with Universal as their Hollywood partner. But Universal said, actually, we've got wind that this young upstart named William Castle is planning on doing his version of it. So let's not do that. Let's go and do something else instead. So they did. And it was later on, well, about a year or so later, they thought, well, hang on, can't we just collaborate with William Castle? Can't we just work together on this film? Now, I like William Castle. Not all of his films, but I like a lot of his films. I like The Tingler. I like The House on Haunted Hill. There's some really good stuff there.
Yeah.
But he's not the right fit for Hammer.
Right.
He's a very different filmmaker to Hammer.
Yeah.
And he'd ended up, I think, under contract to Columbia, which is how the film became a Columbia production rather than a Universal production. And I don't know. It just seems like really, really, really bad fit, these two. Hammer and William Castle. Separately, really entertaining, really good, lots of fun. Bring them together, it just didn't work for me.
It's odd that, isn't it? You would have thought, you know, if I didn't know the kind of general consensus about The Old Dark House from Hammer not being great, and somebody had just said to me, you know, well, it's Hammer and William Castle, I'd have thought, oh, brilliant. Like, two kind of absolute, you know, icons and stalwarts of the genre kind of coming together to remake this classic Universal film. Like, how incredible. This is going to be amazing. But yeah, like you say, like there's something about that team up that just doesn't work. And I think you've hit the nail on the head that they're just very kind of different, I guess, in their sensibilities. That's right. And their way of making films.
Yeah, I mean, you know, so William Castle was very, very American. He was quite brash. And I mean that in a good sense. I mean, you know, he was quite sort of in your face all the time, you know, literally with all his gimmickry and stuff, which we'll talk about. But, you know, he was a very different filmmaker. I think he only made one Gothic, as we would recognise it. That's Sardonicus, or Mr. Sardonicus.
Right.
He was... Oh, in fact, I was talking about this to Jonathan Rigby just yesterday. So he said this, and I said, I'm nicking that. So here I am, Jonathan, I'm nicking this. William Castle, at this point in his career, had done, the Tingler and the House on Haunted Hill, but he'd found a little niche for himself with the success of Psycho. So he was going to start making rip-offs of Psycho.
Oh.
So we're going to get things like, Homicidal in 1961. But then that kind of is done and it's out the way. And he would get an absolute blessing a little bit later on when Whatever Happened to Baby Jane comes along. Mm-hmm. So he can make Straitjacket, which is again about, fading former Hollywood star taking the lead in a horror film. At this point in his career, this year or so between these sort of rip-off waves, as it were, he hasn't got anything to copy. So he's making things like Zots, which is a kind of family fantasy about, a magic coin. He's making 13 Frightened Girls, which is a kind of spy thriller. It's not at all really a horror film, despite its title. And so he's kind of floundering a little bit. And you can kind of see why, to him, teaming up with Hammer would have seemed like a really good idea.
Yeah.
I could rip off Hammer without ripping off Hammer.
Right.
You know what I mean? But it just doesn't work. It's like, I can imagine the guys at Hammer being, sort of old school British gents, sort of watching the finished version and thinking, oh, I say, old chap, this is a bit much, isn't it? I don't get all the jokes, that kind of thing. But, it was a very, very, very mismatched partnership.
Yeah.
It only happened the once, and they never came back together again for, I think, fairly obvious reasons. Yeah.
We've got it here, Kev, at the 1966 mark.
Yeah.
But actually, it was... What is it? Shot in 1962 and then released in the US in 1963.
That's right. And we could put it here because we're kind of doing these films in chronological release order.
Yes.
By British release.
Yes.
And I think at the time we ummed and ahed about should we have put this earlier, around the time of the American release. But no, we'll stick to our guns here. And the problem was it wasn't delayed for the reason you might think. It wasn't because Hammer looked at the finished product and thought, oh, God, it's a bit shit, isn't it? It was actually because of the BBFC, of all things. Oh. What had happened was that Hammer wanted it to be a U certificate so they could target the kids during the 1963 Easter school holidays.
Right.
And the BBFC insisted on an A certificate, which would have ruled out all of the school kids at that time. And there was a lot of back and forth between Hammer and the studio, the censors. And in fact, at one point, Hammer decided, oh, to hell with it, we'll give us an X certificate then, and we'll promote it as a horror film. And the exhibitors said no to that because they wanted the kids to come in and see it.
Right.
And so this rumbled on and on and on, and eventually Hammer just had to relent, and in March 1966 they got an A certificate from the board. They put it out, I think, in September that year, as the bottom half of a double bill of all things. It was with Fielder Cook's Western, A Big Hand for the Little Lady, which was retitled Big Deal at Dodge City, starring Henry Fonda, Joanne Woodward and Jason Robards. So a good cast.
Big Hand for a Little Lady is an incredible title, I will say.
It's a fantastic title, isn't it? I would have gone to see the double bill just to see that film. Yeah. I would not been too bothered about the Old Dark House. But let's be thankful for Small Mercies. When it did finally open here, it was 9 minutes shorter than the American version. There are actually two distinct versions of this film. There's the American version, which was released in 1963 in the States, which was 9 minutes longer, but in black and white.
Okay.
Then there's the British version in colour, which is mercifully a bit shorter.
And
I think the version we're seeing now is actually the full length version of it, but in colour. So it's actually 3 versions of the film.
Right, yeah. And the 9 minutes that they cut, was that cut by the censors to give it the A certificate?
No, this was in America. So I think this was cut mainly to sort of get the film down to double bill length.
Oh, I see.
Bits of it so that we can put it on with another film of comparable length and sell it as a double bill package.
I see.
Yeah, I mean, back then, people, I mean, it's hard to believe in this modern climate of filmmaking, but back then people liked shorter films, and particularly the exhibitors, the cinema owners, because they get more bums on seats each day.
Yeah, of course.
Nowadays, you know, you get your average Christopher Nolan film, you might get 3 screenings a day.
Yeah.
You know, even a double bill would actually be shorter than that.
Yeah.
You'd probably get 4 of those, you know, back in the day. But, so I think that's what it was. It was just a commercial thing. It was nothing to do with the censors, because really, when you see the film, there's absolutely bugger all in there to actually censor.
That's what I was thinking.
I'm amazed the BBFC thought this was A certificate material.
Yeah.
I think they didn't like close-ups of dead people's faces.
Right.
And so, actually, I'm confusing myself here, because this is such a confusing story. It's actually the British version that's 9 minutes shorter, isn't it? And there was some talk from the board,
right? Okay,
about not seeing dead people's faces.
I mean, I get that to a certain extent, but I mean, we'll come on to talk about this. But the dead people's faces in this film are funny. They're not scary,
yes.
right? It's not like they are very much played for laughs.
I've not seen Big Hand for a Little Lady. I think I'd like to, but I suspect, you know, it's a Western. There's going to be dead people in it at some point.
Yeah.
And I suspect there were probably more dead people with sort of, you know, agonised looks on their faces in that film than there were in, you know. But that's probably why they stuck them together. They just gave up on the kids and said, right, let's stick 2 A films together and just get this film out there.
Yeah.
So, Hammer had moved on to bigger and better things by this point. You know, we're looking right back here. I think it was made just before Paranoiac.
Right. Isn't that? Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it?
So we're looking at a very long time ago. Yeah. So I think that at this point, Hammer would just like, oh, for God's sake, just release it in some shape or form. Let's get some of our money back for this, at least, you know.
Okay, we'll talk about the plot of the movie. So, when American salesman Tom delivers a car to a remote Dartmoor mansion, he becomes stranded overnight along with the eccentric Femme family. As the feuding relatives begin to turn up murdered, Tom must survive until dawn. So...
Well, congratulations on making it sound more interesting than it really is. I mean, there's that to be said, I suppose.
This, obviously, we've already said that this is a kind of a remake of the Universal, the old Dark House. But actually, that plot doesn't really bear too much resemblance.
It's a remake in the same way that Frankenstein and Dracula weren't.
That's a good way to put it.
You know what I mean? That they take the very basics and just go off in a different direction. Which, you know, there's a large part of me that thinks that's exactly how remakes should be done. You can't improve on the 1933 version, so why would you even try?
No, I mean, I was
do something different. But if you're going to do that, don't call it the old Dark House.
So I was going to say, like, one of the main things that is the same is that at least there's an old Dark House in both films.
That's right. Yeah.
But the other thing that really strikes me about the difference is the tone is just complete. It's like, it's not just that they have changed some of the plot and, you know, kind of done a remake, but not a real remake, and just kind of used some of the key elements. They have literally turned what is essentially a horror film. I mean, I know that it is relatively light-hearted, the original version. But I rewatched it ahead of this discussion because, you know, I wanted to make sure that it was kind of fresh in my head when we were sort of talking comparison.
Sure, yeah.
And it's genuinely frightening at moments. Like there's proper scares in the Universal version.
Yeah.
Here, it is just pure broad comedy. And I say broad in probably the most disparaging way I can do, because you get this character of Tom who comes in. And he is, you know, the kind of, so it's not, you know, travellers out on a stormy night who need to seek solace. Tom is invited there by one of the Fenn family, by Casper Fenn, and he, as the plot synopsis says, he's delivering this car, and this is how he sort of comes into the environment. And he is an American, and they play this up very much, the fact that he is an American sort of in this very British setting amongst these very sort of British people. And a lot of the comedy, the broader comedy, falls onto Tom's shoulders. And Tom Penderell in the film is played by Tom Poston, the actor. And one of the things that just really kind of didn't work for me was those bits of comedy from Tom. Like, they are so clunky, and all of them just land like a ton of bricks. Yeah. There's a wit to other performances in the film that I do think works better, but the broadness of the comedy, of, you know, what I think is supposed to be the kind of out and out jokes, which all come from this character of Tom, it takes that vibe like so far away from the original.
That's right.
It just basically makes it a completely different kind of film, but with the same title and with the same sort of surname for the central family. Otherwise, it really doesn't bear a lot of resemblance at all.
It doesn't. It's very... And again, American listeners, I do apologise. I'm not having a pop, honestly, but it's a very American style of humour. Yeah. Whereas I think in the Universal film, because it was James Whale, who was British, there's a very sly British humour to it. The original film is more witty. Exactly. It's a gothic horror film with a witty script. Yeah. This is a kind of knockabout comedy with sort of a dash of horror sprinkled over the top occasionally. Yeah. And so I think they're even coming from different directions. They're sort of trying to reach the same destination, but they're going down very different roads to get there. In some ways, this makes more sense to think of it, I think, as a William Castle film than as a Hammer film. As a Hammer film, yeah. It's more in keeping with the sort of late 50s, early 60s American style of comedy. It really, it does feel very late 50s, early 60s. Like, it does. The music is used in an extremely obvious way. Like, the score drove me mad, but it's because it keeps telling you when you're supposed to be laughing. That's right. And so you get this sort of double whammy of those moments of comedy not really working, because A, the jokes don't really land, and B, you've got this kind of blaring soundtrack that's going along with all of these gags. It's Benjamin Frankel we have to thank / blame for that. It's a terrible score. Like you say, it's constantly nudging us to laugh. Yeah. It's it's doing exactly the thing that the Carry On films didn't do. That's interesting. That they used the music to punctuate the humour. Whereas it's like, here comes a joke, get ready, hi, did you laugh at it? Mm-hmm. And if not, we're going to make a funny wham, wham, wham noise, to sort of try and G you along a little bit. It's kind of a bit desperate, to be honest. And strangely enough, by the time the Old Dark House had opened in the UK, Carry On Screaming was waiting in the wings. Mm-hmm. I think it came out a month later, and that would really show them how this sort of thing, including the music, should be done. Yeah, definitely. We recently did a round table with Mike and Susan from Carry On Up the podcast about horror and comedy. You can... people that went out on the Hammer Time feed, so people will hopefully have heard it, or if you want to watch it, you can also find it on YouTube. But a lot of the stuff that we talked about during that chat with Mike and Susan was around the kind of balance between horror and comedy if you're trying to make a horror comedy, right? And so I think one of the things we sort of agreed upon was this idea that to make it successful, you need to have the horror being scary and the comedy being funny. So where do you think that Hammer's The Old Dark House would kind of fit into that? Like, would you say that it is just a comedy, and so we should really be looking at it like that, because obviously we are including it in our Hammer horror podcast, or do you think it is trying to be a horror comedy and therefore is potentially failing on both fronts? Well, look at it this way, right? It's made by Hammer Films. Mm-hmm. It's directed by William Castle. It's based on one of the greatest horror films ever made. I think that there was some on the production, probably most people on the production, who thought it was going to be a horror film.
Yeah.
I think what William Castle came back with is, I don't know. I don't think it's really a proper horror film. It's certainly not a comedy. A comedy to me should be purposefully funny all the way through. This has got one or two moments where you get this extraordinary supporting cast that we're going to talk about in a while.
Yeah.
Doing little comedy lines, but they're falling flat at every turn. The script is not supporting them in any way. I mean, they do things like, I think at one point, I think it's Tom who says something like, I'm going to leave, and then gets threatened, and he said, oh, I'm not going to leave. Yeah. And we're meant to laugh at that.
Yeah, we are meant to laugh at that. That's one of the earliest moments when I thought, what is this?
Yeah.
He says it's when Uncle Potiphar first finds him, and he says, come out. And Tom says, I'm not coming out. And then he points the gun at him and he goes, I'm coming out.
Yeah.
And it's like, that is absolutely meant to garner a laugh. And I was like, what is this? Like, the delivery is wrong, the timing is off.
And even by 1962/63, that joke had been done a million times before. And he wasn't that funny the first time they did it. You know, they'd already run it into the ground. So it's neither one thing or another. And it certainly doesn't succeed at either. It's not a scary horror film, and it's not a funny comedy. It is the worst of both worlds, I'm afraid.
Right. This is kind of what I was hinting at, I think, in some ways, is it's not that it's not a successful horror comedy because it fails on one count. It's that it sadly fails on both counts.
You can get films which are frightening with a little bit of humour in it, and you can get comedy films with one or two scary moments in it, and they will still work.
Yeah.
But it's when both sides fail, and this fails.
Exactly.
But you look at Carry On Screaming, we mentioned it earlier, it gets the horror scenes bang on.
Yes.
You know, they are played for laughs, but they're made by people who understood how the horror film worked in 1966, and it's really funny. Really funny, and the horror is really well done. This just, the horror doesn't work. It feels like he hasn't watched a Hammer film. You know what I mean? And the comedy is just, it's so feeble. So feeble.
I mean, I'd slightly question even the moments that are supposed to be the horror moments. Now, I know you said before with the censors, you know, they didn't like the idea of the sort of close-ups of dead bodies. But this strikes me more like, I don't know, something like the sort of Ealing comedies.
Yeah.
Where it's very, and I don't... Trust me, I don't mean in terms of quality.
Oh, God, no.
But what I do mean is in terms of, you know, sort of something sort of dark, thematically dark happens, but it's not played as being scary.
No.
I mean, I'm thinking about, for example, when Aunt Agatha is found with her knitting needles through her neck, and she's got this huge grin on her face, and there's no kind of blood or gore at all. It's they very much look like the sort, you know, like, you know, the sort of headbands that you get with like half an arrow on each side.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, it looks like that, but it looks like it's almost meant to be funny. Like it's a prop gag rather than like.
Yeah, that's right.
It rather than it meant to be scary as a death. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. And I think there's a really good example right at the end where Cecily goes mad and she's revealed as the killer. And that, I mean, that's, you know, probably one of the best parts of the film, to be fair.
I agree, yeah.
But compare that to, you know, Barbara Shelley going feral.
Yeah.
In previous films. It's all a bit staid, isn't it? It's a bit sort of like, oh, you're the murderess, are you? And it's like I can see Jeanette Scott desperately wanting to go for it. To really let rip, but it feels like she's been restrained somehow.
Yeah, there's one bit where she does sort of manage to sort of go over, and she says something like, she says to Tom, come with me, Tom, we'll be rich. And he just says, you're mad. And she goes, then die, and kind of screams the word die at the top of her lungs. But even things like and I know that we really are jumping forward to the end of the film, but it's sort of in context of what we're talking about around the horror. Things like Cecily's sort of expiration, when she dies, but we only really assume she dies because she sort of stood out in the rain. Tom is getting rid of all the clocks with all the bombs in them, throws it, and it lands at her feet. Now, she hasn't noticed it and is just sort of quite happily stood there expecting the house to blow up. Yeah. And then we cut away and we hear an explosion in the distance. And even then you're kind of thinking, like, I don't know, it just doesn't have any teeth at all, this film. And I'm not sure, I'm not convinced that it was meant to.
Right, no. I can see why Hammer thought that they were onto something with the kids' audience.
Yeah.
It feels like a kids' film.
Yeah.
Rather than a film for adults, film for grown-ups. Yeah. It's a very tricky one. It was, when I reviewed all the Hammer films, I always keep saying a few years ago, it's getting on for a decade now, I think, it's a long time ago. I'm denied about whether to put this one in because it didn't feel like a horror film. I simply put it in for the reasons that I mentioned earlier. The reasons why it's still here in this podcast is the fact that it's Hammer, William Castle, and it's a remake of
which absolutely makes sense.
A supposed remake of a classic horror film. So it kind of is. I think it wanted to be. Some of the people wanted it to be a horror film. Some of them didn't, and nobody ended up happy. That's what I take from it. I think some of the production thought they were making a horror film. Some of them thought they were making a comedy. Neither of them did a very good job, and it just ends up being what it is, which is mostly awful. To be honest.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
I know, it's really bad. So let's, before we sort of come on to talk in more specific detail about the kind of the cast of characters and the goings on, I do just want to sort of, before we move too far away from the plot, just talk about the specific differences with the original, because that is, as I say, very classic, sort of travellers out on a stormy night. They can't get any further, and they sort of see, there's a light on at the Frankenstein place, and they have to go up and seek shelter. And so you get, two lots who all sort of gather, and this odd family of sort of elderly eccentrics and their mute servant played by Boris Karloff, and there's all of these odd sorts of goings on. Saul the brother is locked away because he's a homicidal maniac, and everybody seems to be terrified of him, and there's sort of hints that the house has a bit of a sort of hold over them.
That's right.
Also, at the same time, it's a little bit more kind of like, well, we don't really have much of another choice because, this is our home, and, we're elderly now and we have to look after our crazy brother. So, this is kind of where we're stuck. And then you get the travellers who come in and encounter all that, and, antics ensue. With this film, with Hammer's The Old Dark House, it leans much more into themes that we've seen from Hammer before.
That's right,
which is the kind of inheritance sort of scheme, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So, the people keep turning up dead. And there's sort of a bit of a kind of whodunit element, or very much a whodunit element at the centre, which is, as they all die, the number of suspects is obviously going down, and which member of the family is seeing everybody else off so that they can kind of come into all of the money. And so it's basically waiting to find out which of them is doing it. And so that sounds, you know, I think on paper, the idea of taking the original setup of the old Dark House and kind of putting that more kind of tried and tested spin of a kind of inheritance plot and, you know, sort of whodunit on top of that. And getting William Castle involved sounds like it should really succeed. But for me...
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
For me, it's that lean into the comedy, away from just the wit of the original. And I must say that I do think that there are some lines delivered by the supporting cast in this version, which actually did sort of at least make me sort of smile to myself, if not,
exactly.
You know, if not like laugh my head off.
Sure.
But it's that sort of slapstick element at the centre of the comedy that just makes it too different, and for me, it just makes it not work, I think.
I think the key difference is, to be honest, that for all his talents, Castle was no James Whale.
Very few people are, right?
Very few people are, and I think, you know, he just didn't have the feel for the comedy so much.
Yeah.
You know, the funny bits in his other films generally don't work for me as well as his horror stuff does. You know, a lot of the comedy in his other films, I think, comes from the gimmicks. You know, people laugh at the gimmicks more than anything else.
We should maybe talk about that a bit, Kev, about William Castle's kind of reputation as a showman, really.
A showman, yeah, of course, yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna scare the pants off America with his autobiography title. You know, he was, and I don't mean this disparagingly, he was a huckster. He knew how to get bums on seats, and he was a genius at it.
Yeah.
Really, really good. He had, you know, look at some of the films he did, the things he did with it. House on Haunted Hill was something called Emergo, where in certain cinemas, skeletons on wires would be cranked out into the audience to give an extra fright. We got The Tingler, which we did a screening of, didn't we? Which went down incredibly well. See The Tingler with a receptive crowd like we had. It's one of the best experiences you'll ever have.
Honestly, I had so much fun. And because obviously what William Castle did for that was he had electrodes placed in the cinema seats, so that whenever a sort of a scream happened on screen, the audience would literally get zapped, and so they would scream at the top of their lungs. Now, that's not so easy to do at the Regent Street Cinema in London. So
bloody health and safety gone mad.
I know. And so we had to get a bit creative ourselves and basically sort of briefed the audience ahead of time, didn't we? That whenever somebody screams on screen, we want the whole audience to scream at the top of their lungs.
Yeah, that's right.
Without being sort of, you know, electrocuted in the butt cheek. It worked so well. The crowd was so game for it, and it was such an amazing experience.
And honestly, if you were there that night, thank you. You played into it beautifully. In fact, I think I said as we finished the Q&A at the end, I said, "Come on, one last screamer." They all screamed on cue. They were so into it, and this is why those films worked so well, because, you know, I think I said on that night that not every cinema had this Percepto system.
No.
In fact, I suspect very few did, and the ones that did were all in the big cities. But I think people were sort of so hyped up by seeing it on the posters, you know, you too could feel the Tingler, that even though it wasn't in their cinema and was probably, you know, the nearest cinema that had got Percepto was probably about 300 miles away or something in America, that it didn't matter. It got them in. But they were curious. They wanted to see what was going to happen. Is anybody going to get zapped by the Tingler? If they were disappointed at the end, well, I don't think they were, because the film was so good.
Well, exactly. I love The Tingler. It's great.
It's a great film, so I think they enjoyed it. And he kept on doing these things. He had something called Illusiono with 13 ghosts, which was supposed to be like a pair of 3D glasses with one, or you got two of them, one with red lenses and one with blue lenses. And if you look through the blue lenses, you didn't see the ghosts. If you look through the red lenses, you did see the ghosts. It was all a con. He didn't make two versions of this bloody film. He was making them for a pittance. The ghosts were always there. But, and then there was a fright break in Homicidal, a punishment pole in Sardonicus. This was his stock in trade. This is what he did.
Yeah.
To get people in. And it was hugely successful. It's almost the antithesis of what Hammer did. Yeah, they had some fantastically gaudy promotional posters. We're going to see some great ones coming up in the coming few weeks where they really went to town on them. But for the most part, it was very British. Here's a film, it's going to scare you. Yeah. Enjoy yourselves. Come back and see the next one. Whereas, Castle would turn up at screenings.
Yes.
And act the showman. He loved it. He lived for it. So he was a very different character to the poor old guys down at Bray Studios. They were hard-bitten sort of veterans of the British film industry, and here comes this brash bloke from America somewhere, sort of chewing on his ever-present cigar.
With all his toys.
And his gimmicks and his daft ideas, and he's like, I love him. I really do. I don't like all of his films, but I think he as a character was absolutely amazing. He was just a fantastic person to read about. I can highly recommend his autobiography. It's very funny.
What was the name of it again?
It's called I'm Going to Scare the Pants Off America.
Have a quick aside. Have you seen Matinee with John Goodman?
I have seen Matinee.
Yes.
And John Goodman is William Castle.
Yes.
That's exactly who he is, yeah.
I love that film so much. Joe Dante is one of my faves anyway.
Yeah.
But Matinee was one that I came to relatively late in my sort of Dante watching. I love John Goodman, and it is so good. The fact that his film in it is called Mant, because it's a man who turns into an ant, just gets me every time. It's so good, and it really captures that kind of just the sort of the playful energy around that whole sort of idea of, having people dressing up and having these kind of gimmicks and sort of contraptions and stuff happening in the cinemas. And I just absolutely love that film.
Do you know what? Even at my advanced age, I think I would go to the cinema a lot more if people were doing that now.
Yeah.
I kind of miss all those stories about these sort of, like taking life insurance out on people in case they died of shock. Things like that. And it's like these films are never going to frighten anybody to death, but they're just, the ballyhoo is fantastic. It's all part of the night out. It's all part of your trip to the cinema. I love it. Absolutely love it.
The thing that sort of springs to mind for me in more sort of recent cinema, and this isn't the same thing at all, but in terms of kind of, I don't know, a playful kind of gimmick that sort of got people in to cinemas and really worked was Barbenheimer, right?
So it was, wasn't it? Yeah,
this idea of putting these two so polar opposite types of movies, out on the same day and sort of capitalizing on that and really the sort of marketing leaning into it, but specifically the kind of cinemas themselves leaning into it and kind of putting their own stuff on around it, creating their own kind of posters and cocktails and whatever.
That's right.
They all really kind of leaned into the gimmick of Barbenheimer, and there was something about that as a cinema goer. I mean, I did. I went and I double billed them at my local View, and that was such a it just added another little
And we saw something of that as well, I think, with something like the Blair Witch Project.
That's such a good shout.
Those guys are the sons of William Castle. Because, they were doing it on a much lower key level, but they were still creating ballyhoo about their film.
Kev, that is such a good show.
Well, they even got IMDb involved, didn't they? Because IMDb listed the three actors as missing, presumed dead for a long while. And it was only really when everybody had seen the film that, no, they're really alive. It's fine. Good luck. Here they are in another film now, And I just think that kind of showmanship, I kind of like it. I do kind of like it. It's I'm not a great fan of Troma films, but I think Lloyd Kaufman does a good job of being that kind of brash, loud,
Yeah.
noisy mogul type. You know, I think
Yes.
he's really entertaining. He's far more entertaining than the films he's pushing. But maybe that's kind of the joke. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I don't get that. But yeah, I kind of miss it. I miss the William Castles of this world. We could do with a few now. So if you're thinking about making a film, particularly a horror film, go and have a look at some William Castle films and the things he did.
Yeah. And Hitchcock, of course.
And Hitchcock, of course. Well, Hitchcock was a huge influence on Castle, of course. You know, when you see The Tingler, he turns up in the trailer for The Tingler, just like Hitchcock turned up in the trailer for Psycho. In fact, William Castle got there first in that case, because The Tingler came out in 59.
Amazing.
Psycho in 60. But they were kind of very different people, very different filmmakers, but they had that same love of showmanship.
Exactly, yeah. And
I do miss that.
There's a cheekiness to it. There's a playfulness
there
that I really enjoy.
Which ironically is completely missing in the old Dark House.
Completely missing. Or
Yeah.
at least it's, again, I think it's trying for it.
For failing.
But it's failing.
Yeah.
Like, I think that there is an element of playfulness. You know, things like actually the knitting needles through Agatha's.
Right, yeah.
You know, that is playful in some ways. That big grin on her face. Things like, you know, they can never close Casper's eyes even after he's dead, and that sort of stuff. Like, these are actually the elements that do work for me slightly more, but they are so overshadowed and drowned almost amongst all of the absolute clangers that that dominate the rest of the film.
Indeed, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, yeah, there are moments where I smile, but I never have a belly laugh.
No.
And I think from a horror comedy, I want a belly laugh. I laugh like a drain at things like Evil Dead 2 or American Werewolf in London.
Shaun of the Dead.
Shaun of the Dead. I mean, they make me howl laughing.
Yeah.
They're so funny. And, you know, I laugh out loud at the original The Old Dark House.
Yeah.
There's a very funny bit. I love that line that, you know, when the door is opened by Boris Karloff's butler and he goes at them. And this guy said, the American guy said, even Welsh oughtn't to sound like that. You know, and do you think these lines are just comedy gold? Even now, they're hilarious. But we don't get anything like that here.
No.
We get a few moments where we think, oh, yeah, that was clever. Yeah, that's good. Yeah. And that's it. We can't get any sort of like jumping up and down and sort of getting enthusiastic about it. When I saw all of those films, I wanted to go and tell people to watch them.
Yeah.
You know, I came home from American Werewolf in London, raving about it to my family and sort of meeting up with my friends the next few days, saying, you've got to see this film. I'm here to sort of... almost, sorry Hammer if you're listening, I'm here, and indeed sorry to Indicator if you're listening, I'm here to tell people don't bother with this one, to be honest. You're going to be massively disappointed by it. So, but having said that, I do commentaries for Indicator, so do please go and buy the Blu-ray. Not at all that I have vested interests here, you understand, but you know. So.
Right, let's talk about our cast of characters. We've already mentioned Tom Penderell, played by Tom Poston. So this is the guy kind of at the centre of the film who obviously arrives at the titular old dark house and is suddenly thrown into the midst of the very odd and eccentric femme family. Tom Poston's face looked familiar to me.
Yes, well, you may remember him. You won't remember him from his previous work. He'd been a big hit on television in the Steve Allen Show. That ran from 1956 to 1959, which is even predating me. However, you may remember him. I think he played the downstairs neighbour in Mork and Mindy.
Oh, my God.
Do you remember Mork and Mindy?
Of course I do.
Yeah. And if I remember right, he's the downstairs neighbour in that. So he's not in every episode, but he appears in a few of them.
Amazing.
He's in Newhart, the 1982 to 1990 show, and Grace Under Fire a bit more recently, 95 to 98. So he was big on television. He was a big name on television. I tend to find that a little Tom Poston goes a very, very long way, and we get an awful lot of Tom Poston here.
Yeah.
Way too much Tom Poston for my liking. I think Kinematograph Weekly, the trade journal, summed him up quite nicely in their review. They said Tom Poston is passable in the role of the invited one, but his performance doesn't quite warrant his journey from America. So I think that's kind of, it's a nice sort of very English way of saying he's not very good, really, is it? But I find him eminently unlikable.
I do as well.
I just can't warm to him as a person.
I've just found him really irritating.
Yeah. There is a school of American comedy, and I include in these things like the Three Stooges and Abbott and Costello and things like that, which I just can't connect with. Mm-hmm. And I can't, there's some, I love, the road films, the Bob Hope and Bing Crosby films. I adore those. They're hilarious. But there's a certain strand I can't connect with. And he seems to be part of that in a sort of roundabout kind of way.
Yeah.
It's a very 50s, already quite dated style of American humour that I never connected with.
I think that's it. It does feel dated. Another one that I would, is like the Phil Silvers show as well, like Sergeant Bilko, that kind of thing, which I always used to find when it was on TV that I just, like when I was a kid, and as we've said a couple of times, we only had 3 channels, and
that's right,
to watch what your parents were watching. I could barely stay in the room. Again, that is completely subjective. That is very much my own,
of course,
personal taste.
You see, I really like Phil Silvers.
Okay,
but I think he's classier.
Maybe it's not a good comparison. But I think that's what he kind of reminded me.
He's just got more personality than Tom Poston.
Yeah, I mean,
Tom Poston, he's kind of a blank slate throughout this film. He's kind of, by the end of it, I know less about Tom Pendrell at the end than I did at the beginning. Because he's just such a personality void. Yeah. That by the time we get to the end sequence, I'm kind of thinking, for God's sake, Femme Family, just kill him off now. Yeah. Put us out of our misery. Get rid of him. He's just... And I'm sure Tom Poston was a lovely guy, but he was wrong for this part.
I think that's it. I mean, there's bits, I used the word slapstick earlier. There's this kind of recurring gag in the film where there's a trapdoor. Yeah. That if you use the door knocker, the trapdoor opens and you fall down the trapdoor and you slide down a kind of slide like sort of ramp and end up in the coal cellar.
That's right.
And so this happens like 2 or 3 times during the film. It happens when he first turns up. It happens when he tries to leave to go and call the police, and obviously he steps out of the front door and Uncle Potiphar hasn't reclosed his trap door, and so he just falls straight back down. And then it happens as like the hilarious end of movie punchline. And even if you've got a comedian who is able to kind of deliver that amazing physical performance and kind of really nail the slapstick, you don't need to know too much of his backstory and stuff, because, you're watching him for that. But even those moments, they are so cringeworthy. The bit where he falls down and then the coal chute kind of opens and he gets covered in coal and it kind of keeps coming. I was just like, I just don't know what it's meant to be.
No, exactly. And the galling thing is that happens, and we're thinking, well, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to feel about this. And then they do it a couple more times. Yeah. And it's like, well, it wasn't really that funny the first time. By the time we got to the 3rd iteration of this, I'm just irritated by it. It's just so annoying rather than funny.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. And again, coming back to the chat that we had with Mike and Susan, obviously, just like horror, just like being afraid of things, finding things funny is subjective, right? I'm going to find things funny that you don't find funny, vice versa. I would think that every person listening to this right now will have something that they think's hilarious and nobody else does, right?
Exactly.
It's exactly the same with horror. I find clowns absolutely terrifying. Right. Other people find them really funny and entertaining, right? Or some people find ghost films really scary and they can't watch those, but they love a bit of gore, and other people vice versa. So it's all subjective. But I do think that people can be agreed upon when something is tried and just doesn't work out. And the sad thing about this film is I don't think it is really a subjective, oh, we just don't find the jokes funny. I think it is that the jokes are poorly crafted, and so they don't work.
And it is to do with the writing, I think, because we'll go on to talk about them in a minute, but we have got some of the British cinema's greatest comedy actors in this film.
Yes.
And even they can't put this across.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm talking about all that stuff, I kind of am talking about Tom Poston.
I think that's the problem. Tom Poston, he drags the whole thing down for me.
Yeah.
I think, I'm trying to think who they could have had instead. Maybe if they got Bob Hope or something, we would have had a much classier film, to be honest. But Tom Poston, he'd made a film with William Castle before, Zotz, which I mentioned earlier, so I assume he got the part because of that, because he already knew Castle. Watching this performance, I can't see what people saw in him as a comedian.
No, same.
Yeah, there's nothing there. There's nothing to him at all. And by having that completely hollow centre to the film, all the other actors have to sort of circulate around this kind of black hole at the middle of the film, and they're constantly just struggling to stay in orbit in a way, to stay in the film, because it's just like they're just not given enough to do by the leading man and by the scriptwriter, There's no chemistry between him and the others. That's the problem.
No, I think that's it. And what I was about to say was one of the bits of the film that really did work for me was between Robert Morley's Roderick Femme and Joyce Grenfell's Agatha Femme. So they are like brother and sister in the film. And I know that we'll come on to talk about these, incredible performers of, British comedy. But he comes in with a gun. And he asks Agatha if she's seen the acid that he uses to clean the gun. And we're set up earlier to understand that she's the person who does all the cooking in the house, right? So he says it was in the kitchen, and he goes, "You didn't, did you?" Sort of suggesting like you haven't sort of put it in the food. And she says, "No, at least I don't think I did. You feel all right, don't you?" And there is this really lovely chemistry between these two actors. The kind of wit and sort of, this hinting at like not really saying explicitly what they're talking about, but them still getting it across, all really, really worked for me. And that is between just these two. And it's not them struggling to kind of make comedy work up against Tom Poston's slightly clunky performance. And so actually for me, it's a shame because, as you say, he is so central to the entire movie that actually the bits that do work are sadly when he's kind of not in the scene. When
he's not there, yes, exactly. Because then we're allowed to see these absolute giants of British comedy going through their paces.
Yeah.
And yes, the script doesn't serve them terribly well, but because they were professionals, they were able to find ways to make the gags work even a little bit.
I think that's it.
But as soon as Poston walks in,
I know.
It's like, all the energy just drops, doesn't it?
I know.
It just gets sucked out of the film. It's just like, let's stay with the family. They were much more interesting. They should have killed Tom Pendrell in the opening scene and then could have just watched the family going through their paces.
When the lion, like the stone lion, falls off the top of the gate, the big gate to the house, and falls through the bonnet of the car and destroys the car, it should have actually like clonked him on the head. And even if it hadn't killed him, he could have just been like, comatose for the rest of the film while we follow these crazy family.
This is really very good supporting cast. Yeah, absolutely right.
Yes, they are. So we've got Robert Morley as Roderick. We've got Jeanette Scott as Cecily, Joyce Grenfell as Agatha. We've got Mervyn Johns as Potiphar, which I'm so sorry. Potiphar is the most incredible name.
Isn't it fantastic? Although I kept hearing it as potty mouth, which is not quite the effect they were going for, is it? But that's just my weird and twisted brain. But yeah, Potiphar, it's a great name. I don't know whether it's a real name.
I've never heard the name Potiphar before. I'm going to get myself a cat and call it Potiphar.
Oh, it's a great name for a cat, isn't it? Potiphar. Yeah, Potiphar the pussycat.
Exactly. We've got the brilliant Fenella Fielding as Morgana. You know, we were talking about Carry On Screaming earlier, and this is like just before she's in that, you know, in that iconic role in Carry On Screaming.
Indeed, yeah.
Peter Bull, who plays the twins Casper and Jasper, and then Danny Green as Morgan Femme. Now, Danny Green is kind of the Boris Karloff character.
That's right, yeah.
Because he's mute for the vast majority of the film, although we're led to understand that he can speak, he just doesn't because he doesn't like any of them.
That's right, he chooses not to because they're his awful family, yeah.
Exactly. But he's very much the kind of bearded brute, isn't he? And,
yes.
He's the father of Morgana, played by Fenella Fielding, and spends basically the whole of the film chasing Tom around, beating him up. Because he thinks that Tom is there to steal Morgana away. And to be fair, that theory is very much egged on by Morgana, who is an extremely horny woman who, the moment that Tom appears on the doorstep, pretty much has got designs upon him.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, God knows why.
I know.
To be fair, I mean, I can't quite see what Tom Pendrell would have to offer a woman like that, but for some reason she has got. Well, the
both Cecily and Morgana are kind of falling over themselves, and I think I think you're supposed to believe that you know, they are. So the whole conceit of the film is that they are waiting for their inheritance from this old ancestral pirate. And there are intense stipulations to the will. So they have to be home in the house by midnight every night. There's a kind of sort of Cinderella situation going on. They can go out during the day, but they have to be in by midnight. And they can never move out, right? They have to reside in the home if they want to be eligible for this inheritance. And I think we're to understand that they're all desperate to kind of get away, right? But they kind of can't.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Because if they do, then they are disinherited. And so, you know, Cecily and Morgana both being these beautiful women, although, Jesus, Morgana, Fenella Fielding is put in the most bizarre outfits. I don't know who was doing costuming.
And she gets this awful leering introduction when she's coming down the stairs and the camera tracks in on certain parts of her anatomy, shall we say. And it's kind of, that's a bit icky. You know, Hammer were doing the eroticism stuff so much classier than that elsewhere.
Yeah.
This was fairly puerile sort of teenage boy stuff.
Yeah. And it's
compared
almost
to what Hammer were doing.
The outfit that she's got on in that entrance when she comes down the stairs and the camera is leering all over her is bizarre because she's got on what looks like a sort of late 50s, early 60s kind of pencil skirt dress with one of those kind of, it's got like a conical bra underneath, so she's got that sort of iconic silhouette, hourglass with those pointy boobs. That was very much sort of the look of the time. But they seem to have made a decision to then add a belt under her bust, so that her breasts are essentially much more kind of crazily accentuated.
That's right.
And then the camera really does kind of linger on them. And I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know who designed that dress, but one, it's ugly, and two, it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. It is. And like I say, you know, when Hammer were doing eroticism previously, and even when they get more explicit later on in the 70s, no holds barred stuff there, it still doesn't feel quite as juvenile, a lot of it, one or two exceptions, as it does here. This feels very much like, the teenage boys, they'll get off on this scene.
I mean, I would even say Fenella Fielding in Carry On Screaming
Yeah.
is treated with a bit more respect
better.
than Morgana
Yeah.
is. Because, and you know, if people say the whole kind of, oh, you know, craw, darling, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, in terms of films, you're often talking about stuff like Carry On, right? That's the whole kind of, the whole point of the podcast, our sister podcast, is kind of looking at what the Carry On films are beyond that reputation that it has for just being a bit kind of sleazy and grubby.
And she's treated with much more respect, like you say, in Carry On Screaming. We're not there leering over her. We're just admiring the fact that she's a gorgeous, striking-looking woman who's incredibly sexy,
which is
without
so
having to zoom in on her boobs like they do here.
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
And you know, she's also really horny in that film. You know, she's going after Harry Corbett's policeman the whole time,
That's right.
as she should. I mean, she's got eyes. But yeah, you know, even when she's like laying back on the couch in that incredible red dress that they've got her in, and she's, you know, do you mind if I smoke?
I smoke,
Even then, when she is meant to be overtly horny, it's not as bad as it is in
Not
this
at
film.
all.
I was agog.
There's no subtlety about anything in this film, but particularly this aspect of it. It's not at all subtle. You know, a lot of the critics were sort of criticising Hammer for the heightened eroticism and saying it wasn't very subtle. They needed to tone it down. But my God, compared to what's going on here, I don't think we've had any other woman in a Hammer film that's walked down a staircase and they've just literally lopped off her head just to zoom in on her breasts.
Yeah.
I don't think we've had that in any other Hammer film. They were much more...
I certainly can't think of it.
No, they were much more subtle than that. It's crass here. It really is. I'm amazed she recovers from that to be the best thing in the film, to be honest. But there you are.
Now, all right, okay, so you think Fenella Fielding's the best thing in the film. That's interesting, because I think Joyce Grenfell's the best thing in the film.
She's not in it enough. That's the problem.
No, I know, that is true.
Yeah. If she'd been in it till the very end and been like the penultimate person to die, she would have been the best thing in the film, because she was the best thing in everything she did.
She's so good.
She's so good. But I think she's completely wasted here.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's such a good point.
And what's so sad is, you know, this was made in 1963. She only had 2 more films to come, the Americanisation of Emily and the Yellow Rolls Royce. And then her film career seems to have been over at that point. So it's kind of, she deserved better, to be honest. And when she was in some of these films, these earlier films that she did, they're absolutely incredible. And you've got things like The Happiest Days of Your Life in 1950, The Galloping Major, The Magic Box, Genevieve. What a wonderful film,
Oh,
£1 Million
my
Nose.
God, Genevieve.
Genevieve. Oh, I love it. And of course, she's in the St. Trinian's films.
The St. Trinian's. I mean, it's
Blue Murder
it's Genevieve and the St. Trinian's films that I know her from. Absolutely.
And the Pure Hell of St. Trinian's, let's not forget. I've just noticed that on my list. But yeah, and she's so good in that. You can see why she was one of the most highly regarded female comedians of her time. Mm-hmm. But this, if you'd seen this film, you think, yeah, she's okay. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't do a lot, does she?
No, she doesn't. So there's this weird thing where they've all got hobbies. And I guess again, this is leaning into this idea that they can never really leave the house. So they've all developed these hobbies. And Agatha's hobby is that she never stops knitting. And there's actually something a little bit, I don't know, there's a little bit of pathos to this thing. She says at one point, sometimes I don't know what would happen if I stopped knitting. It's almost like she's doing it to kind of keep herself sane. Now she is a little bit dotty, and some of the sort of comedy comes from that. But there's another bit where she says, you can see what sort of day I've had, depending on how my knitting was. And she sort of goes through this huge, scarf that she's knitting, which is, miles long. Yeah. And there's one bit that's sort of all very, sort of chaotic. And she says, oh, this wasn't a very good day. And then there's another bit that's really beautifully done. And she says, this was a good day. And so there, again, I feel like I mean, I would have watched an entire film about Agatha.
Absolutely. I was going to say a lot more of that, please.
Yeah.
And this would have been a great film. You know, seeing that mix of comedy and pathos, which, you know, Grenfell does brilliantly, I would have loved this film.
Yeah.
But she's not in it enough for me.
I know.
That's the problem. Feels terribly wasted.
Yeah.
But that's a beautiful scene. That is a very good scene, yeah.
Okay, so elsewhere, let's talk about Robert Morley as Roderick. So Roderick is the kind of, I guess he's the eldest brother. He very much seems to be the kind of surviving patriarch.
That's right, yeah.
His hobby is that he collects guns. So he's got like an entire arsenal of guns in this room in the house. But Robert Morley, again, I think is pretty great in this, you know, to the point that he does the best with what he's given. Exactly.
Yeah. Now, if you compare this to his other great horror comedy role, which of course is Theatre of Blood in 1973, it's a world of difference, isn't it? A world of difference. And, you know, they both got Robert Morley in it, but somehow Theatre of Blood is just a better film. And he rises to the occasion so much more in Theatre of Blood than he does here.
With his poodles.
I know, and that's real horror.
Yes, it is.
That is real horror. That is really nasty stuff. And again, it just feels like he's a little bit wasted here. Not so much in terms of screen time.
No, because
this time, but
he's in it for the majority, isn't he?
He gets more screen time, but it's just his talent. His talent is better than this. Like you said, he's not really served well by the script.
I think that's it. Yeah, just doing the best with what he's given, really.
That's exactly right. Yeah, and I've got to say, Castle was so lucky to have had people of this quality, of Morley and you know, Grenfell and Fielding and Mervyn Johns, that they were so good that they could, if not quite entirely polish the metaphorical turd, they could give it a bit of a spruce up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They could actually sort of get something from it.
Mervyn Johns plays the fantastically named Potiphar. His hobby is that he's built an ark.
Yes, he's waiting for the end of the world, isn't he?
A literal ark. So, yes, he thinks that the end of the world is nigh. He's done all his calculations. He's convinced that the world is going to end with the big flood, basically, another big flood, 40 days and 40 nights. He's all in a tizzy throughout the whole of this film because it won't stop raining, and he's running around the whole time saying, we haven't got much time, and he has literally built like a huge wooden ark in the kind of you know, the grounds of the house, which he has populated with you know, the animals come on 2 by 2, basically.
And he gets a really nice line, doesn't he, towards the end of the film, where it hasn't happened. His apocalypse hasn't happened. He just says, never mind, it's coming. It will. And he's still at the end, he's still convinced it's coming. It's still going to be, you know. And he's the one that actually spells out the film's title, isn't he? He says when he says, you see, it's an old house, older and dark.
Yeah, no, that annoyed me.
Did it? Yeah! Oh, I thought that was quite nice. I thought his delivery was quite funny there, but there you are. There you see subjectiveness of comedy.
There you go. I was just like, yeah, all right. Like, miserable old cow I am.
Miserable Becky. That is what I'm going to call you from now on. Miserable Becky. I can't be the only misery guts in this team.
Exactly, you know? Exactly. I need to give you
I'm wearing off on you. Oh, God, I didn't mean that to happen.
No. There's a great bit, because, of course, the house is under... is sort of in huge states of disrepair, and so they've got kind of they've got buckets and
umbrellas.
Chamber pots was the word I was looking for.
Yes.
Buckets and chamber pots everywhere, sort of collecting. And there is a great bit where they're having dinner around the table, and Potiphar sat there with an umbrella up,
which is an unexpectedly clever bit of writing. That he's the one expecting the deluge, and so he's the one that's actually being directly rained upon at the table.
Yeah.
All the others have kind of managed to avoid it by their placing. You know, there's water coming in and being collected elsewhere. It's falling right on Potiphar's head.
It is.
And that's a very clever bit of writing. And that sort of annoyed me, because I was watching it thinking, why couldn't you be that clever and witty
for the
elsewhere?
Rest of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing, while we're on the subject of the Ark,
Yeah.
Can we talk about the hyena?
Must we? Oh. Go on, off you go. Get it off your chest. Go on.
This is hands down the worst bit of the entire film.
Yeah.
So Tom's in bed and he's doing that hilarious joke that no one's ever seen before, where something's licking his hand.
Yeah.
And so he's going in his sleep, oh, Morgana. Oh, no, don't.
Yeah.
No, Morgana, no. Oh, and he thinks in his dream that it's Morgana who's licking his hand. Then he wakes up and opens his eyes, and it's not Morgana, it's a hyena. Right.
Yes.
So, that's surprising and possibly quite scary. Apart from the fact that the hyena they have used is so obviously stuffed.
Yeah.
That I thought, wait a minute, Tom's being stupid. How could a stuffed hyena be licking his hands?
Right.
And then when he wakes up and screams and Potiphar comes in to save him from the hyena, and what looks like like a Labrador then trots out of the door and out of shot, I'm thinking, oh, okay, so the stuffed thing that we spend considerable time looking at as it's snarling and growling at him on his chest is actually meant to be alive. It's not meant to be stuffed. And then when they've decided to reveal that it's a real live hyena, they then get a Labrador or a golden retriever or something,
which looks nothing like a hyena,
to leave the room in its place, which couldn't be less like a hyena. I don't know what to say, Kevin. I do not know what to say.
I've thought for many years that I'm just missing something with this scene. That there's a joke that I just don't get. That there's something that Castle and co thought, oh, this is hilarious. But I don't get it. I don't understand. Yeah, like you, I'm just like...
I don't get it. Is it supposed to be so bad it's like funny? Is that
This is the question. This is it. Is it meant to be a joke? I don't get it. I don't know. Is it something that's just gone over my head? Is it my fault, not theirs, that I don't understand this? It's such a weird scene, isn't it?
So weird. And we've talked a little bit about, we've talked a lot actually, about how so much of the comedy doesn't really work for us. But those you can tell them meant to be jokes, I just don't find it funny. This, I didn't really get any sense that it was even meant to be comedy. Like, I just thought, God, that is literally the worst, like, stuffed, the worst stuffed hyena that's meant to be a real hyena that then turns into a golden retriever that I've ever seen.
It does feel like it's meant to be some sort of joke and we're just not getting it. And I'd be curious for our next mailbag, if anybody out there is able to explain what the joke is, do let us know.
Does anyone get it?
I've seen the film a few times over the years and I just don't understand this scene at all.
And then I guess finally who we need to talk about in terms of the cast is Peter Bull, who plays Casper and Jasper. Now, when we're first introduced to Casper in the casino, because he's Tom's friend, and Tom has sourced this American car with all the bells and whistles for Casper. And they've got this weird arrangement that's a little bit like Jack Lemmon in The Apartment, where...
That's exactly what I thought of, yeah.
Because Casper has to be back at the mansion by midnight every night, he lets Tom have the flat at night. And so then Tom's not there during the day, and that's when Casper's there, and vice versa. So they share this flat, but their paths never really cross. Casper's gotten Tom to get him this car. He turns up at the casino to deliver the car. Fine. Casper's hobby, by the way, is gambling, apparently. We're told that his hobby is gambling. So he turns up, and at first I'm thinking this is a really terrible performance from Peter Bull. Like wooden, kind of like turning it up to 11, but not even really like scenery chewing or anything, just like bad acting. And then as you get to know Casper a little bit better, or rather you get to know Jasper a little bit better, because he's the twin and they've got a very similar sort of countenance. I think that's just the way that the character is, right? And actually, by the end of it, I kind of loved Jasper. It's not just that Peter Bull's doing like a bad acting job. He's acting as this character acts, and by the end of it I was like, yeah, he's actually kind of cool.
Yeah, I was the same. When he first comes on, I think, oh dear me, and then I remember, actually no, it's going to work out, isn't it, towards the end, because we get to know the characters better.
Yeah,
and we understand that's just what they're like. That's just who
sweet,
they are.
Actually, yeah,
it is quite sweet. They are possibly the most likable characters in the film. It's they've got no they've got no edge to them.
No, not at all.
They're quite sad characters. The
they
twins,
are. This whole thing about Humpty and Dumpty. So
that's right.
There's this nursery rhyme kind of motif that runs through the film. A lot of that is to do with the Bells of St Clements, or Origins and Lemons.
Origins and Lemons. Yep.
And then there's also this thing about Humpty Dumpty. And again, there's this really sad line because, I mean, how awful to have a sibling die. But I think, to have a twin die is especially horrible.
That's right.
And Jasper says, Humpty and Dumpty, Mummy used to call us. Now there's just Dumpty left.
Yeah.
Oh, God, Jasper.
Again, more like this, please, where we're actually getting to know these characters and care about them. It's a very touching moment. It really is, yeah.
It's really sad. But then he also meets a grim end, because he gets some, like, fire tongs kind of... he gets strangled with them, I think, is what you're meant to believe.
That's right,
isn't
yeah.
it? He's found with them round his neck. Aunt Agatha gets her knitting needles through her neck. Uncle Roderick comes a cropper of one of his own guns.
Yep.
Because the murderer has kind of set it up so that he opens one of his gun cabinets and the gun kind of falls out and the trigger goes.
Yeah, that's right.
He gets shot straight in the chest, I think. And yeah, I think that's it. So Casper and Jasper and Agatha and Roderick all die.
Yeah.
And then you think that Morgana's going to go, because, as you said earlier, Kev, Cecily, played by Jeanette Scott, is revealed to be the person behind it all along. And you're kind of thrown, because you're not supposed to think it's her, because she's the one that keeps sort of going on about there's something terrible happening in this house and getting, trying to get Tom to leave. And they've done that thing that they do in these films in the 50s and 60s where they've fallen immediately in love with each other and blah, 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 blah. Which also happens in the original The Old Dark House. But in that film, it's completely adorable and sweet, and I want those two to live happily ever after. And actually, when the guy falls over the kind of mezzanine bit and cracks his head, and you think he's dead, I am like, oh my God, like he's actually dead, and this is really sad, because he was going to ask her to marry him, and it's all sort of like tension, and actually works really well. With these two, I was like, I don't really understand what she sees in him. I don't understand what is going on here at all.
For God's sake, she's Jeanette Scott. She's gorgeous.
She is so
She could
gorgeous.
have had the pick of any man. Thora Hurd's daughter, let's remember, if you remember when I mentioned it in Paranoia.
I do.
And she's she's stunning. She's gorgeous. She's lovely. Why there? What does she see in Tom?
No idea.
Really? It's like, what are these women seeing in Tom Penderell? It's like, I don't know. I don't get it. Weird.
But
anyway, I digress.
Cecily is... right, you know the Munsters?
Yeah.
You know there's the young woman in the Munsters who's like the normal one.
The normal one, the daughter, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of how I see Cecily. She's almost like the normal one. And so...
I think the character's called Marilyn.
Is it? Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
I haven't seen the Munsters in years, but...
No, me neither. Someone will correct me.
Yeah, that again sort of gives you a bit of a red herring, doesn't it? Because all of the others are super eccentric and a bit odd. And, you know, either they collect guns or poor old Potiphar with his apocalyptic predictions, and Morgan, who's constantly running around beating people up and not speaking to anybody. And so, you know, it's like Cecily would be the last person that it is. But obviously it does turn out to be her in the end. And she, as I said earlier, sort of comes a cropper sort of from an explosion, but we don't get to see any of that. And again, I thought that was such a wasted opportunity, because we've seen explosions in Hammer films. We talk all the time about how at least houses burn down a lot.
That's right, yeah.
But you don't even get any of that.
I think you get like a sort of little bit of a wash of light, don't you, over them, which is meant to sort of... and I don't know, maybe he thought this was funny. You know, there's this epic great explosion. Aha, we're not going to show it to you. But if he did, it doesn't work.
Doesn't work.
It really doesn't work. It's like, I mean, it kind of builds up to something quite interesting towards the end when she goes mad, or she's revealed to be mad.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think Jeanette Scott, you can kind of tell she's itching to go completely psycho.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
And she's not kind of allowed to. But... and then instead, we just get all this dashing about with Tom.
Yeah,
he's just trying to find all these time bombs.
That entire sequence. It's genuinely badly directed. Like,
it is, yeah.
Because you've got Morgana, who's sort of trapped behind this sort of wooden door, and she knows where all the clocks are and he doesn't, and so he keeps running back to her, and then she tells him where the next clock is, and then he dashes off, finds the clock, pulls all the wires out of it, comes back, she tells him where the next one is. It seems to go on for about 10 minutes.
Oh, it's very elongated, isn't it? Far too long.
Ugh.
And he's just like him dashing about with a little bit of slapstick going on, and he kind of, there's no tension in it, because I don't think he mentions something like, we've got 7 minutes to defuse them all. And then they kind of barely mention the countdown again. So while he's running around, we're just thinking, oh, he's taken an awful long time to find these things. He must be safe. He must be all right, because it's got to be more than 7. It probably isn't. It just feels like 7 minutes, to be honest. But yeah, it's a very, very strange end sequence. It just doesn't work at all. The whole thing from the trying to find the bombs through to the explosion doesn't work.
No.
I think they should have focused more on Jeanette Scott going mad.
Yep.
And then done something with that, perhaps.
Yeah.
Why did she have time bombs all over the house? Why didn't she just make one big bomb in the basement?
I literally don't know.
It's just
weird.
weird.
Why doesn't she just do what people in every other Hammer film does and just set fire to some curtains?
Exactly. Just burn them alive, you know. Come on, this is what we're here for, you know. No, it's a very, very bad ending. It really does.
I didn't get my bingo card out once in this film.
No, not at all. I mean, don't get into your head that this is what I'm going to be like when we get to 1970. Some of those films I have a passionate dislike of. This one, I just kind of like,
This is the thing, right?
Whatever.
So people, one will often get feedback like, oh, I love it when you guys hate a film, like not just us, but like in the general sort of podcasting realm, it'll be like, oh, you know, that was a great episode. I love it when you hate on a film. Often people don't like it if they are particularly passionate about a film, but especially if it's a film that is pretty much universally understood to be rubbish. People quite like hearing people, you know, getting on their soapbox about it and sort of like really laying into it and tearing it to shreds.
Yeah,
and I think we have torn this to shreds pretty brutally in some ways, but I agree, Kev, it doesn't really make me angry. It's not one of those ones that I can sort of, I don't know, really go off on one and have a bit of fun with being like, you know, oh God, and this bit and that bit. It was more just a case of there's just so little to like and sink your teeth into. And I think it's quite obvious, like, where those faults are.
Yeah.
But then there are bits about it that, for me, I almost did find quite charming, and I agree with you completely, which is if the seeds of that are there, it almost makes it more frustrating that they couldn't kind of build those bits out, right? Rely more on Joyce Grenfell, rely more on that kind of mix of the sort of comedy and the pathos, rely more on the kind of wittier, more accomplished performers rather than Tom Poston, who is neither a particularly good deliverer of comedy lines, nor is he a good sort of physical performer.
No, not
and
at all.
So it just all falls very, very flat. And then I think for me, the icing on the cake that makes it so egregious is that it is a remake of The Old Dark House, which, as you have said so rightly, is one of the best horror films ever made.
Of course, absolutely right. I think what this is a classic example of another comedy cliche. I'm not angry, I'm just really disappointed.
Yes. Correct.
And I think that sums it up. There's nothing in here that makes me angry like some of the films we're going to talk about in a few weeks or months' time. I'm just kind of watching it, I just think, oh, is that, you know, it's just got Hammer's name on it.
Is that the best you can do? Like William Castle, Hammer, you know?
You guys are much better than this. It's just a huge disappointment. It really
misstep.
is.
Really big misstep.
It is. That's exactly it. A misstep. Yeah. Oh, we can chalk it up to experience now. We can move on and we can really go to town in 1970. Oh boy, are you going to see some foaming at the mouth in those episodes. Oh dear, oh dear.
I do, however, have 3 lines that I want to focus on as my favourite moments.
Okay.
None of them are delivered by Tom Poston. They're all delivered by the other much more accomplished members of the cast. And these are the ones that gave me a small chuckle, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
One is from Joyce Grenfell's Agatha, when she first meets Tom and she says, "We're having you for dinner. Delicious." Which was beautifully delivered by her.
Of course.
We've got one from Robert Morley's Roderick, when poor old Agatha has been found with the knitting needles through her neck, and he says, "Must have been murder. She always knitted so carefully."
Yeah, that is a good one. I'll give you that one. That is a good one.
As if it could have been an accident. I mean, so good. And then the last one is from Mervyn Johns, Potiphar, who he mulls Tom some wine after he's been caught in the quicksand. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we could do a quicksand bingo. There you go. Quicksand.
Oh, there you go. Quicksand bingo. There you go. Yeah.
Poor old Tom's been stuck in the quicksand. Potiphar mulls him some wine, and you've had this whole thing with the acid in the basin, right? Where Morgana has brought Tom, this is earlier in the film, Morgana has brought Tom a basin of, in quotes, water so that he can have the wash and sort of freshen up before dinner. But as he leans over, his tie goes into it and starts smoking and kind of disintegrates. And this turns into a whole thing. This is what turns into Roderick asking Agatha if she knows where the acid has gone, blah, 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 right? Mm-hmm. So at this point, very suspicious of everybody, Tom is given this cup of mulled wine to warm him up after the quicksand, and he dunks his tie in it as like a test.
Yeah.
And Potiphar just looks very confused, and he says, "Is that an American custom?"
Yeah. The trouble is with them, they're very funny lines, but they just make me wish there were more of them.
I know.
Do you know what I mean? He's like, they are good. You just think, oh, why are there only 3 good lines in the whole film?
In the whole film,
yeah.
I know.
Yeah. It's like, you go and watch Carry On Screaming. We could have sat here for 2 hours just quoting the dialogue.
Yeah.
And discussing that, you know what I mean?
But, exactly.
Well. What can you do?
Have you got any faves?
No, they're all awful. No, I've got a couple. I've got a couple. We've mentioned the pathos with the characters, the sadness of some of the characters. I think he's really genuinely touching. And again, I would have liked to have seen more of that. I do like the opening titles.
Oh my God, we haven't talked about the opening titles. They are so...
We haven't.
They are so good.
They are good. And they're Charles Adams, of course, which is another tick in the horror credentials column. And I love the fact that when he signs his name, you see, comes out, his title is drawn by, and he signs his name, he's got a hairy hand.
Yeah.
A hairy clutching hand as he signs that. That's a lovely moment. That's really good.
And they're all kind of animated, aren't they? So it's kind of the house, and a little sort of door will open and a hand will come out holding a candle, and then it'll kind of sweep along and you'll look through a window and something will be happening, and sort of drawn by him. So it's all this like hand drawn animation.
That's right.
It's gorgeous.
Absolutely lovely. And it does set you up for, great expectations for this film, which, you're very, very quickly set straight on, aren't you? But and the other thing I kind of like, although it doesn't really work, I like the idea of it, is Jeanette Scott turning into a complete nutcase at the end.
Yeah.
I just wish they'd let her off the leash a bit more.
Yeah.
I would love to see Jeanette Scott go full on psycho. That's not some weird kink, honestly. I think she was just such a good actress. She would have done a really good job. Okay, maybe there is a little bit of me that's thinking, oh, actually, Jeanette Scott going a bit psycho. But I think she could have pulled it off really well. She's got these fantastic sort of mad staring eyes at the end. And I wanted to see a bit more of that. And when she's outside, I wanted to see more of her sort of like completely mad, where she's just sort of standing there in the rain.
Yeah, I know.
And
just absolutely stock still. Like they could have at least had her like cackling or something. Like
that's right. Yeah, sort of enjoying the moment that she's finally going to kill all her family. She's so short, but I think just for a couple of seconds there are a couple of really nice shots of her.
Yeah, there is definitely the bit where she's kind of got the cleaver to Morgana's neck and stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
But yeah, what I would have really loved would. Flashing back to Nightmare, remember Moira Redmond in Nightmare when she properly loses it at the end?
That's right.
I would have loved those levels of mania.
Oh, yeah. That would have actually at least brought the film to a really good ending rather than the damp squib that we get.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, well. They can't all be bangers, I suppose.
No, this is very true. We've only had a couple of duff ones so far, but, this is probably the worst of them. But
yeah, I mean, so I have ranked this extremely low.
Oh, it's basement level low.
Yeah, basement.
Me. Yeah,
but it's still not the worst one for me. When I looked back, because I keep them all on Letterboxd.
Yeah.
And I thought, is this my worst one yet? And I kind of ordered them all so I could see. And Curse of the Mummy's Tomb is still my least favourite.
You see, it's a toss-up.
But this has come in as my second least favourite. I mean, this is a lower film for me.
That's interesting, because I think, Maniac and Curse of the Mummy's Tomb are the two films we've liked the least so far, I think. And Maniac at least has the advantage of some nice location work.
Yeah.
It's one of the psycho thrillers. And I think, Curse of the Mummy's Tomb, it's not a very good film at all, but at least it's a gothic horror film. And they're trying to make a gothic horror film. This one, I think, for me, falls slightly below that because they can't make their mind up what they want it to be.
Yeah, I think that's really fair.
It's not horror, it's not comedy, it's just, what is it? What's it for? So, yeah, but I think, we're both agreed that it is very much lower, very much bargain basement stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if you want to listen to Kev and I talk with a little more enthusiasm about comedy horrors, and you haven't listened to our roundtable with Mike and Susan yet, that is available on this stream. It's available on the Carry On Up the podcast stream. And if you want to watch all our lovely faces while we chat about it, you can find it on the Evolution of Horror.
Lovely faces. Were you not looking at my part of the screen, for God's sake? I mean, I look like someone that's just wandered off the set of a Hammer film, for God's sake. Lovely faces.
Hush your mouth, Kevin Lyons. I won't have it. Don't you talk about my co-host that way. Thanks for listening to Hammer Time. We'll be back next week with Joan Fontaine as we join a coven and discuss The Witches from 1966. If you're watching along, you can pick it up on Blu-ray from Hammer and Studio Canal. To check out the full list of movies we'll be covering throughout the podcast, head to evolutionofhorror.com/Hammer. We love to hear from you, so please send us questions or comments for upcoming mailbag episodes. Let us know if we are completely wrong on the old Dark House and you find it hilarious. Let us know what the hell that hyena is all about if you get that. I am dying to know, so please do write in hammer@evolutionofhorror.com. You can follow the Evolution of Horror Network on Instagram at EOH_network and on BlueSky at Evolution of Horror. You can follow me on Instagram and BlueSky at Bunny Darke, and on Letterboxd I'm Becky Darke. And Kev, where can people find you and your work online?
Look up EOFF-TV on BlueSky, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram and Letterboxd. And you can find my website, the Encyclopedia of Fantastic Film and Television, at eofftv.com, or you can search for EOFF-TV Review to find more horrible comments about the old Dark House and various others.
Don't forget to rate and review us on your podcast app of choice. Thank you for listening. Join us next week for another episode of Hammer Time.